Hello, my beautiful coven. Welcome back, earbud coven. Have I got a treat for you today? I have my friend Kristy Abel here. Now, we've been working together in the same spaces for a few years now, I think now, babe.
Yep.
And she brings so much to the table. She knows so much about human design. She has a similar passion to tarot that I do. And she has just launched a YouTube channel called Tarot in HD. So we're going to be talking tarot. I want to talk some human design because I don't study that. So
Yeah.
I learn from the people around me. So welcome, Kristy.
Well, thank you, Jody Ann. It's awesome to be here. I'm super psyched. I've listened to your podcast and seen you on YouTube lots of times. And so when you asked me to join you, I was like, yes. I was like, no hesitation whatsoever.
And you've done my human design too.
I have. I think you're either a manifesting generator or a generator. I can't
I
remember.
think I'm a manifesting generator.
Yeah, and that really tracks for you. Definitely. And I am a manifester. I'm a 4-6 manifester. And one of the things that's really interesting about that is it has allowed me to like full steam ahead with tarot, even though I've heard otherwise. Like some of the books that I've read, they've said, oh, you need to practice for 4 years before you can charge somebody for a reading. You need to do this, you need to do that. And I was like, well, I got the message to start doing this in November of 2023, and it's now November 2024. And so less than a year, channel, readings, all these kinds of things. But I feel like I have permission because of my human design, right? So as a manifester, I'm supposed to go out and just do whatever I want. People fall into three categories: people who are like, hell yes, other people who are like, I'm not quite so sure about this, and then others who are like, hell no. And so it's like this automatic filtration system for me. So I didn't feel the need to hold back and study for years. And I know that I'm still in a novice early like stage. I'm not afraid of making mistakes and doing them publicly. It's more important to just take action to me. And so I'm excited about how the channel is going to grow over the next couple of years. Yeah.
I super love that. And one of the things I think I really like about that is I feel like you're going to give your audience the opportunity to grow with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
As you're speaking, I'm tuning in and getting that vibe as we do when we come together with people who do the work.
Yeah.
It just feels like your audience will grow with you.
Yes.
That makes sense. Like you'll be
Yeah.
learning together.
Yeah, 100%. So the first couple, like my first 60 videos were all just my hands. And I only moved into the face. I only moved into that 2 weeks ago. And it was because I had these ideas about how things should be. And then I was like, no, what is the universe telling me to do? And it's just take these baby steps towards this growth. And then starting to just put everything together.
My channel's similar. So I do the podcast. And one of the things I love about the audio medium is that I can roll out of bed, make a cup of coffee with my curly hair all everywhere and my dog in the bed and just talk to my little earbud coven. And
Yeah.
it feels very informal and it feels very cozy to me when I'm creating. The
Yeah.
YouTube channel, I actually have to have a shower and do something
Yeah.
with my face and my hair, but I'm not very polished either. One of
Yeah.
the things I hang on to is that the world needs my crappy art. Like if everyone just did the thing, if we all just did the thing that we're called to that resonates with us, not waiting for it to be perfect, but
Yeah.
to just put it forward. Because if you look at the really prolific painters of the world, like Leonardo da Vinci didn't just do masterpieces, like he's got a
No.
bunch of crap we found. It's
Uh-huh.
just like sketches. And it's the same with Pablo Picasso. He has all these sketches that he did, and then he got into Cubism.
Yeah.
So they had to go through their own process of making mediocre stuff before they were upheld as these great masters.
Yeah. And that was spoken like a true manifesting generator, right? Like, because with manifesting generators, you are able to, first of all, you're more like a generator than a manifester. None of the human design types, energy types are better than the other. They just all function differently in society. And when we all come together living by our design, then like it creates this magic that is just incredible. But as a generator, having that as your base, you're supposed to do what lights you up, what fulfills you. And then in so doing, you then create all of this energy for the rest of us to draw from, right? Like I don't create energy for other people as a manifester. I like ideas, 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 ideas. I get like hundreds of downloads a week about like things I could be doing. And so one of my challenges is to like see which ones do I actually want to follow, because manifestors are great at starting things, but they're not great at finishing them. Whereas someone who's a manifesting generator has best of both worlds, where you start things and you finish them. But because you're so good at doing so many things, sometimes the best thing you can do is say no. So that's a really interesting kind of thing. Really tune in to, is this in alignment with what I want or what I'm being called to do? Okay, so I'm very big into societal conditioning and like untangling
Oh,
it. And
yeah,
yes,
yeah,
I
yeah.
do know.
So much of my work is
Right?
like unraveling the thought
Yes,
forms and the
yes,
ancestral curses that we've picked up from our culture. And I don't
100%.
judge anyone for having them. Like we're all
No,
in the water, we're all wet.
we've
All
all
of that
got it, right?
information.
But we can choose to like to untangle that and separate ourselves from it. I live almost fully by my human design, and there's lots of different aspects to it. November has been an incredible manifestation month for me in terms of things that I set in motion years ago. Stuff are coming now and coming hard and fast. And I'm just like so grateful. So Jody, there was a reading that you did for me way early in my journey, like
Oh, oh,
way
oh,
early.
tell me,
Okay.
because I
Yeah.
forget, because
I
like a
know you
good
will. Right.
reader, it
Yeah.
comes in and I give it to you and it's gone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
tell me.
So I was in our space with Experience Essence Collective for a totally different reason at first, right? I was here to represent the body and learning ways to be more healthy and that kind of thing. And it was maybe like 6 or 7 months in, and I was a participant in one of the online summits. And you gave me a reading, and you said, I recorded it because I've listened to it several times.
Oh my
And
God.
oh, yeah,
You're gonna
100%. Yeah.
degarsh me so badly.
Like go back to it. And you said two of the things that really stood out for me. There was one, you're here for a very specific and important reason, but it's not what you think, right? Because back then I was still very focused on products and things that I could promote and for the better of the collective 100%, but it was not in the esoteric space. And so you gave me this. And then you also said that I was like a tiger on tinfoil, because I was very tentative. I have been searching before I found tarot and human design. I was really searching for, where do I land in this space, right? So for 3 years, I was trying very hard to be an evidential medium. Like I want to talk to dead people. I want that power, or like the link. I want to be that person, but it wasn't happening, and it wasn't happening. And I was get frustrated because I'm used to like setting a goal, making a plan, going for what I want and achieving it. And I felt very powerless in this way. And one of the things you said, you're like, you're so confident, but you're tentative at the same time, that tiger on tinfoil. And that image has stayed with me for a really long time. That and the, where am I supposed to fit in this space? And everything changed. So I started with manifestation.
I
Mhm.
remember how quickly you could manifest because you'd been listening to your intuition your
Yeah.
whole life, but not really calling it that.
Yes.
You were like calling it following your gut or having good business instinct or something. And all
Uh,
of us psychics were like, baby, we can see it. We can see what you're downloading. We can see you're in tune.
yeah. And so I remember talking with Tara and saying, can I teach a manifestation course? Because for me, I was an atheist for many years, and then I was agnostic until about 4 years ago, had a spiritual awakening, and but needed those baby steps, right? To work towards like full on, like, boom, yeah, here we are. Like I'm ready, I'm receiving. And that's where we're at now. And manifestation, like being able to take something that's like intangible and then have it materialize in my physical world, was something that I really needed to believe in spirit, to believe in the power of the universe or God or whatever we choose to call it. And then kind of 6 months into it, I said, can I teach a course? And Tara was like, yeah, sure. And then I had some really great success with manifestation courses and whatnot. But I was like, but that's not it. And then I found human design, and all of a sudden, my whole life made sense. My whole existence made sense. Like it was the biggest permission slip I've ever had in my life to go ahead and do something like this and not be like, oh, you're an imposter. I'm like, no. I am supposed to do this. So I found that. And then I was like, okay. So then I started teaching about human design. And then in November last year, I was like, where do I go from here? Like, human design is static. It's like a stamp, right? So it's like you're born this time around at this location at this time on this date. The universe goes, stamp, this is who you're supposed to be. And then, of course, we get socially conditioned out of it. And then it's this process of, right? But
I'm going to
how,
pause you
yeah.
because you're like me. When we're excited, we talk
Oh,
fast.
so
It's
much.
good.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I'm hearing you say is you came into this metaphysical space,
Yeah.
it opened you up,
Yeah.
and human design was one of the first modalities you really turned to mastering.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
after manifesting, because you
Yes.
realize how well you manifest.
Oh, yeah. And it turns out like part of the reason I'm so good at manifesting is because I'm literally a manifester, right?
I'm going to rewind you again, my love.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
now, for anyone in the earbud coven who doesn't know what human design is,
Mhm.
can you nutshell that for us? Can you give us like the elevator pitch of what
Yeah.
is human design?
Yeah, 100%. So it is like I talked about the stamp, right? So you've got the
Yes.
stamp, and then human design is actually like a roadmap or like a manual for how to live your life according to that stamp. So there are all these different aspects to it. The most important one is your energy type, and this would be equivalent to like your sun sign in astrology, except there's not 12, there's only 5. So there are generators, which is about 38% of the population, manifesting generators, which is about 32, and then we've got, oh my gosh, my math is not going to work out, but that's okay. And then projectors about 24, manifestors about 9, and then reflectors are about 1, and everybody will have one of these. And then we have our profile, which will be a combination of 2 numbers. I'm a 4-6, for example, and the first number is how you see yourself, and then the second number is how other people see you. And then there's your authority, which is like how you should make decisions. For example, I'm an emotional authority, which about 50% of people are, which means that I should make decisions based on how I feel, not up here.
That's the kind I am too. And I
It's
remember what I learned from the work you did for me is
yeah,
I'm a manifestor generator, so I have
yeah,
to go with what lights me up. When
yeah,
I'm on fire for something,
yeah,
that's my superpower.
yes,
And that's when I'm lit up, it attracts what I need to me.
um,
Really important I go to that place of what brings me joy, what
yeah,
makes me happy, what lights me up, and emotionally make that decision and to really trust it, even when my logiciness is
yeah,
like, whoa, that makes
yeah,
no sense. And it works because
mhm,
I do a lot of manifestation work in general. I do a lot of witchcraft, and I'm often amazed at the life I have created as a single mother raising 2 teenage boys in sports in Vancouver during an economic crisis. And I just came back from 5 days away in Tofino surfing.
wonderful. Love
Like
it.
I'm
Yeah,
able to go where I want to go, travel where I want to go, visit the people I want to visit.
yeah,
It's amazing to me how much
yeah.
comes effortlessly when I'm in my joy.
That's 100 is so true. And only you get to decide what that is, right? We're supposed to each bring something to the collective, and human design tells you what that is. And so the more I live in alignment with my design, the more I'm rewarded in this lifetime. And of course, beyond, right? But right now is where it's happening. Yeah, it's just, that's just a little slice of it. There's much more. But you can tell like there's another thing called your sign, which is how you feel when you're in alignment with your universal design. For me, that is peace. And it's interesting. So I chase peace. And my not self is the opposite of that. And that is anger. And I'm not a very angry person
No.
to begin with. But when I do get angry, I allow myself to feel the feels. I mean, I'm a therapist, right? And
Right.
that comes out a lot in the tarot. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I'm a therapist. And so I know that I can limit the time that I spend in the denser emotions. And I'm like, okay, we've had our little time here. And then I'm like, okay, what do I want to do? And I'm like, oh, I'm out of alignment, right? Oh, if I'm angry, I'm out of alignment with my human design. Oh, what do I need to do to get into alignment? And that's peace. And so I then do a series of things to help myself get to peace. And it's incredible how good that is for your mental health.
Like your choice of words. as the denser emotions.
Yeah.
I really love that choice of words because I feel like there's a lot of connotation around certain emotions in our culture that
Yeah.
they are less than or not good or you're a bad person when you feel that.
We as human beings, we need to have a full spectrum of emotions. Otherwise, you're not having a human experience.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah. I know. So yeah, so human design in a nutshell. For example, as a manifesting generator,
Mhm.
it's always the same. So it's your sign is satisfaction, which I love because
That's so
satisfaction is
true.
that internal feeling of that day well lived, that job well done, that
And
feeling of
I'm a
satisfaction.
competitive person. So
Yeah.
to
Me too.
feel satisfied is
Yeah.
like, it's good.
And
Mhm.
then your not self is frustration. And so when you are frustrated, you're out of your design. And so it's like a signal that you're off the path. Does
If
that
you
make
could
sense?
see me when I can't fix something,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
because I'm quite analytical, it's one of the reasons that
Yeah.
tarot really appeals to me. I'm so far in left field in so many aspects of my life, but in a lot of them, I'm very, very systematic. I
Me
mean,
too.
my
Yeah.
muggle job is in a laboratory, so
Yeah.
come on.
I
Um,
call myself a systems gal all the time. I'm a,
right?
like a data. I love data. Like I
Right.
was in a meeting earlier today at work, and we're talking about collecting data. I'm like, yes, please. I'm like,
I mean,
we need baseline data. It's so interesting because I'm so reliant on my left brain so much. But
mhm,
when I'm in a therapy session, I'm in my right brain a lot. Like I'm using the tools that I've learned in the
mhm.
left brain. But when we're having a conversation, I'm not thinking about what I need to apply here. It's just flowing out. And that's what's happening with the tarot as well, more so than any other modality that I have tried. And I've tried quite a few.
It is my
Yeah.
favorite. I started with tarot when I was 17,
Oh
right?
my.
I got a reading and then I was like, what is this? The art just blew my mind. And I could see it was like as I learned it, it was hard. I remember it
Yeah.
was hard. It because some of the symbology made sense and some of it was so Kabbalistic and so full of like Rosicrucianist
Yeah.
like tree of life, like real esoteric stuff. And my frontal lobe wasn't even developed yet.
Yeah.
So I'm
No, it
diving
wasn't.
into all this symbology and reading every tome I could get from the public library because the internet was not a thing. I had to go to weird little bookshops, right? And sometimes you couldn't even get the good books because there was a lot of gatekeeping around information.
Mm,
So it has grown with me, I think is my point that in my little rabbit hole of Babel,
yeah.
it grows with you. I feel like it's one of those tools that the more you study it, the more it unlocks itself to you
Yeah.
and you find different layers. It's taken me a long time to find the layers of astrology in it
Yeah.
because astrology, I've had like, now that the computers will do the math for you, my dyslexic brain got very confused with the graphing aspect and the
Mm,
time change aspect when I was learning astrology back in the 90s. So I I gave up on it and I'm like, you know what? I know good astrologers and I will rely on them.
yeah.
So now
Yeah.
that the computer does the math for me and does all those angles and changes the time zones and all of that, it's a lot easier. So I'm interested how human design
Yeah.
slots into those esoteric truths because there's a bit of a Venn diagram overlap between human design and astrology and
Yes.
psychology.
Yes. Yeah. So it's interesting. So human design is actually a mix of astrology, quantum physics, the Hindu Brahmin chakra system, and the Kabbalah. Okay. So it's actually
Oh, okay.
drawn from all of these things. And so astrology is like a big part of it. I've always known I was a Gemini and I'm a true Gemini through and through, but I'm also a Gemini sun, moon, and Venus. Yeah. With a Taurus rising,
Oh my God, your poor Taurus rising.
but it makes a lot of sense. And then my north node, my favorite thing about astrology is your north node
Mhm.
because it tells you where to go. So that's part of why I love human design so much is that it tells you, it doesn't tell you it tells you how to make decisions and it tells you how to stay in alignment, but it doesn't tell you like the little things, which is why I love combining it with tarot. And in as far as I know, I am the very first person on YouTube, at least, to combine human design and the tarot. I am the only one doing it. And so it feels cool to be in that kind of like experimental space. And of course, like human design, but I also see that human design is growing. And it's another way of understanding yourself, just like astrology. But it doesn't tell you like what to do like next week. Or I feel like giving guidance from spirit through the tarot, and then the psychology piece. One of the things that I knew this was going to happen when I started, how can I not? If the tarot presents an issue, how can I not use my 20 years of being a psychologist to help resolve that issue? Right. So there's this very, so while the cards are coming at spirit, like all that's happening, and then I'm inspired, and it takes me a little while to like put everything together, but I'm reading the cards like a story. Right. And as soon as I realized that tarot is literally a storytelling device, right?
Yes.
I was like, oh my gosh, this doesn't seem so daunting. Before I used to go, oh, it's 78 cards. There's so much memorization. This can't
No,
be worth it.
Christy, it's the hero's journey. That's how I teach
Yes.
it. That was the way
Yep.
I learned it.
Yeah.
It's the hero's journey from fool
Yeah.
through realization and initiation into the world
Yeah.
card, which is
Yeah.
self-actualization.
Yeah. And
And
then over and over
over
and
and
over
over
again.
again. And
Yeah.
there's multiple layers to each card. So when I teach, one of the ways I look at it, and I'm offering this to you because I know with your analytical brain, you're going to in there and it's going to blossom into something beautiful. So I was taught years ago, I don't even know where I learned this anymore, but to break down the high arcana into three separate sets of seven.
Okay.
So the fool kind of floats around outside. He's your main character, you or your querent or whatever. He's the beginning, the initiate. And then the first seven cards are like learning about your own empowerment. Who
Okay.
am I? What are my strengths? So the magician is
Mm-hmm.
like your I am.
Mm-hmm.
And then the high priestess is your intuition. And then you've got the divine feminine, the divine masculine. And then you go into the Hierophant, which is your faith. And then learning how to make decisions is the lovers card.
Yep.
And then you move into the second set, and this is your initiation. This is how you show up in the world. This is how you're challenged. So, how do you manage being pulled in different directions? That's your chariot. How do you apply knowledge? How do you respond to hardship? That's like learning. Once you're empowered, you get these challenges of how do you do this with your empowerment. So, the hangman, when you're empowered, but you must be still and wait and learn.
Yeah. Huh, I love
When
it.
then you learn the wheel of time, you're not actually in control of anything, even though you're
Yes.
totally powerful, right? So all these aspects. And then the third set is that esoteric mindset, right? In the
Mhm.
great collective, in the spiritual view of things. So that's your sun card. All things are blessings,
Yeah. I love
right? That's your moon card, learning that you are wonderful and beautiful in all your phases. And it almost feels
it.
like the
Mhm.
moon card almost feels like the extension of the high priestess card, like it's what's behind her veil.
I love what you just said about the moon in all of its phases. Like I am taking that and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
happening on my channel
The
next time that
moon,
card comes up.
the moon card teach like the moon itself,
Yeah.
that big goddess in the sky, like she teaches us that no matter how much light or how dark we are always whole.
Mm.
And our
Oh my
lightness and our
gosh.
darkness can
Yes,
shift,
ma'am.
right? Which
I remember one thing we did I think it was a new moon ceremony in the spring. And one of the
yeah.
things that you said that I have taken with me, and I'm pretty sure I've mentioned it on my channel, is like we set like an intention manifestation. And then as you look up into the sky and the moon starts to reveal itself, it's like these steps towards that manifestation at the full moon. And I'm like, yes, I have repeated that several times.
Right,
Yeah.
because our
Yeah.
monkey mind, especially my chaotic mind, needs to attach something tangible to what I'm doing
Mhm.
in the metaphysical world.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll touch that spell and muck with it
Yeah.
and redo it or not trust it. So I like having anchors. And the moon is a perfect one because it's so much bigger than us.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. No, I love that. Like it has all these phases, but reminds us we're still whole. Oh, I love it.
And
Beautiful.
your manifestation worked, didn't it? Because
Oh,
you had a
almost
specific
always.
goal.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's really, really cool. Yeah. And it's interesting because sometimes it's something intangible, right? And then
Mhm.
sometimes it's like we just had a hot tub delivered to our backyard, right?
Atta
And so,
girl.
right. And that's something I put in the works like 8 years ago. And it was like in a list. Or we got this just adopted a dog this weekend,
Yeah.
right? So one of the things about human design is that it will tell you what type of manifestation style you have.
Yes.
And I have so it's either active or passive, specific or non-specific. And it's a combination of those two things. So it's 8 possibilities. And so most manifestation teaches you to be a specific active manifester, right? So
Yes.
it's like make a dream board, write out what you want, be really specific, do lots of visualization. And in my intro courses that I've taught, that's how I went because that's what I knew at the time. And it was working for me. So I felt very confident in teaching it. Well, I do my human design chart really deeply. Turns out I'm passive and non-specific. From somebody who has been an A type her whole life, who has had all of this success in setting a goal. Like I have 4 university degrees, right?
I
Yeah,
didn't know that about you.
yeah,
You
yeah.
say that so nonchalant. Oh, like I only have 4 degrees.
I know. I'm very well educated, right? There's these things that but then I want to apply it to this, right? Like
Yeah.
it's so interesting. So I find this out and I am devastated because I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to change everything. But I believe so much in human design that I was like, let's do it. So when I was thinking about this dog, right, I could have said, I want I don't know, whatever, some sort of breed of
A
dog
Shih
and
Tzu.
love. And if you're an active, and if you're like a specific one, like that's what you should ask for. But I know now that I just need to ask for. So what I asked for in the summer was like, universe, please bring us the perfect dog for our family at the right time. That's it. And lo and behold, boom, like unbelievable, this dog that has just showed up for us. And she was in everything in my criteria, which was like under 50 pounds, under 4 years old, like very general. I don't say I want to manifest $7,000 anymore, but I can say I would like to manifest $7,000 or better, right? Because if I am too specific as a non-specific, the universe won't give me more than what I asked for, right? Like
Okay.
it's very interesting. So go back to your chart and see if you're a specific
Oh,
or non-specific.
as soon as we're off this call, I'm
You're going
pulling it
back.
up and I'm gonna be like, Chrissy said,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's really important. And I don't think the passive or active is in there, but I can show you. It's basically how an arrow is pointing. So one of the things, the last manifestation course that I taught was using your human design to manifest. And so there's a section, like there's a class on authority and like how you make decisions to do it and how to use your strategy, which is how you should make decisions. So like my strategy as a manifestor is to inform.
What do you know? You
How
teach.
perfect is that for me? And as a manifesting generator, yours is to respond, right?
So tell
It's
me what that's like in action.
in action. Really good example is like manifesting generators and generators don't typically love open-ended questions, right? So they would rather. So I live with 3 generators. Okay, so my guys, my 2 sons and my husband they're all generators. So if I say, what do you want for dinner, they all go, I don't know. But if I say, do you want tacos or pizza, they'll tell me, right?
Right.
So it's very interesting. And it's not like you can't answer open-ended
Yeah, yeah,
questions,
yeah.
right? Like you can, but you would
I
prefer
prefer choice.
to
Yeah.
choose from a menu rather than, whereas me, I always know what I want.
Yeah.
Like,
No, that makes sense because I can find it overwhelming to
yeah.
choose.
I've never met a reflector in real life. I've done a chart for somebody across the country, but I have never met. They're very rare, right? 1%. And whenever I do a presentation, like say at the spiritualist church or whatever,
Mhm.
when I talk about reflector, a lot of people are like, "That's me, that's me," and then I'll do their chart and they're a generator. But the thing is, like generators need boundaries because generators are such good machines for making like creation, like for making doing and stuff like that was really important. But because they get into doing things that they don't like and then they withdraw or like they say they're like empaths. So I'll say you can be an empath and be any type of human design, but people like reflectors, they absorb the energy of their environment like nobody else, and they really 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 careful about where they are and whether that energy is theirs or it's from their surroundings. Like it's very challenging and exhausting to be a reflector,
Yeah.
but the reflectors are actually at the center of all human design because they're like a mirror, right? So a reflect, like literally the reflector. So it's if I'm talking to a reflector, I will see myself in them. And then that is an incredible tool for self reflection to go, oh my gosh, that's me. Just like I said, like one of the best gifts that you can give to yourself and the rest of the world is to say no, right? So many people go back to the food metaphor, right? It's like if life is a buffet, right?
Mhm.
And you get to choose from it. Sometimes you take things that you don't like because other people say that you want them, right? Oh, you should really
Mm.
try this, whatever. And you have this big pile of food on your plate. But when your plate is full, the universe goes, there's no space here. So you actually have to take some stuff off your plate so that spirit can come in and go, oh, here's something you'll really like. So this is like one of the things that I talk about a lot in my practice and as well as on the channel is creating that space, being okay with nothingness, being okay with
Oh,
the
that's so
void.
difficult for people.
So how can your higher power give you anything else if everything is full?
One of the ways that I've been working with that idea in the last, I think, 2 years is the idea of allowing things in your life to die. I go into all these dark
Mhm.
witchy metaphors because that's my demo. But I use the idea of a garden, right? Because I'm always living seasonally. I'm doing my
Mhm.
best to live seasonally with like not just the season out there, but with the season internally. Because sometimes my season doesn't match with the world.
Mm.
Sometimes I'm in a prolonged winter and I need like really comforted, blanketed time. And other times I'm in a prolonged summer and I'm really generating a lot. One of the things I look at is everything has its time. Like you have to be willing to let pieces of yourself die. You
Oh,
have to be willing to compost your old life. You have to be willing to let it go. Otherwise, you cannot germinate something new. You
mhm.
can't germinate when you're in bloom.
That's
So
one.
you
Yep.
have to let those blooms fall and die. Good, bad, beautiful, ugly, all of it's got to go sometimes.
Yeah. Just reminding me of the concept of the ego death. So in like
Yes.
in Manifestation 201, which is the follow-up to the first one that I did, there's a whole section on ego and the higher self. And how do we strike a balance between the two? Because of course we need our egos, like it's our personality. Our egos keep us alive. But
Yeah.
I would venture to say that most people, I'm not going to attach a number, are very ego driven in that they're ignoring the higher self and making decisions based on that social conditioning, based on what we're told,
And
what is like,
sometimes survival.
yeah, and
Sometimes our
survival. Yeah.
egos, like when
Yeah.
I'm doing deep healing work and deep, like really deep energy work with people, that ego piece or it's that survival piece.
It
Sometimes,
clutches, your ego
yes.
clutches to your identity so badly. But then when you go through an ego death, it is this release, this thing that, like, just what you were just talking about, right? And then it allows for space, right? So we have, and I've had many ego deaths in my life, and they're not easy,
No.
but we don't grow when we're in our comfort zones. Like if growth and expansion is the goal, which I believe it is, human beings cannot be truly happy unless they're progressing. We can be
Yeah.
content, right? Like we can be chill and content, and there is a lot of people for whom that is an ultimate goal. Say someone who grew up with trauma, they've worked through some things and now they're living in a place where their nervous system isn't activated all the time and contentment is the goal. That's meant, but just think of all the growth that had to happen for that to be achieved.
Like
Yeah.
it's all such a continuum. And when we start looking at things in that continuum and moving from this space to this space, it's so easy to remove judgment of
Yeah.
over what anyone is doing,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
If
I
you
know.
just look
Yeah.
at where the beginning place is for any individual in this incarnation and where they're moving towards, take all the material stuff away and just look at that journey of that soul and how it's expanding. It's so easy to cultivate empathy and
Yeah.
compassion for what that person is going through and enduring, right? So when you really look at it, that energetic
Yeah.
model.
And I will tell you and be very brutally honest here, the biggest ego deaths for me are around judgment. And at the beginning of my journey, like it was some of the biggest yas, like came from, wow, as human beings, we do naturally judge others, right? Our ego does. Okay. And it's a sorting mechanism of this is safe, this is not safe. But then we make judgments about, I'll be very honest, I would make assumptions based on the way somebody looked. I remember I was starting to do some shadow work, right? And again, shadow work creates ego deaths. And so I always feel like when we start to do shadow work, which I'm a huge fan of, I think it's so important because our subconscious, I mean, 95% of what we do is subconscious and only
Oh yeah.
5% is conscious.
Work is the most direct, like
Yeah.
it's the most direct path to healing.
Yeah.
Like
And
if
people are
you
scared
can,
of it. Yeah.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's interesting that you have a counseling background because I've spent a lot of days in therapy. I really believe in therapy. I
Yeah.
believe
Me
in
too.
talk therapy. I believe in coaching. I think it is an integral part of evolution of the soul. I think it's very important to have someone to ask you, how do I say that? To ask the questions that allow you to examine yourself.
Yeah.
However, in the same breath, I have found that shamanic work on my
Mhm.
thought forms, on ancestral curses, on looking deeply at the shadow will it resonates downwards. Like when we do our therapy work, it resonates up to the spiritual level and it's
Mm.
harder to go up. If you can get to that shamanic area, that esoteric weaving of your thought forms of why you feel less than, of
Yeah.
where the curse of the family curse of scarcity was incepted in your energetic line.
Hmm.
When you unwind that stuff, it ripples back into your life so quickly and it'll ripple back through your line. Like
Hmm.
I've done things like deep shadow work on scarcity and I've done work on it. And then I've seen reactions in my cousins' lives. And because
Wow.
I'm like, we're a very close family, and there was a lot of scarcity issues in our
Mhm.
family. Like my great grandfather came over, I think my great great fleeing Ireland starvation, right?
Yeah.
So there's scarcity woven into our bones, and to unwind it and then see the changes in the family line, right?
Yeah.
And some of the work I've done on the messages women carry about our bodies, about our
Mhm.
worth, about our place in the world.
Yeah.
And then seeing it's subtle. It's very subtle, but then different shifts coming up in conversations in the women in my family.
I love it. And it's interesting because when we're open about it, like I was quietly having my spiritual awakening. And then I remember being so afraid of what other people judging me. I was a card carrying atheist for
Yeah.
like 20 years. And so I'm like, am I going to be rejected by my people? And to be fair, I have been in some ways. There's some people that are like, I don't want to talk about this with you. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. And or whatever. But I also was like, my vibe attracts my tribe. So if I am going to move forward with my authentic self, I better start effing being her, right? And so yeah, I remember I had like this coming out post about like understanding finally what like even like organized religion was about. I'm like, I get it. I get why you do this, right? Like I also think, by the way, everybody's right. like, like you're not wrong and you're not wrong and you're not wrong. I'm like, everybody's right. We just have different ways of explaining it for the human experience. And so I came out and it was one of the scariest things I did in my adult life was admit that I was a spiritual person now. And now look at me. I have a tarot channel. It's not my full-time gig yet, but like it will be eventually. Like so and I'm cool with the timing, right?
So
Okay.
tell me, we've been chatting for so long and we
Uh,
both talk so fast. This is going to
mhm.
be a big episode.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
let's talk about tarot.
Oh, yes, please. Yeah.
Let's get there.
Woo! Yeah, it surprised me when I got the download. It was very clear. It was like combine human design and tarot. And I was like, not human design and oracle, although I do incorporate oracle cards into it because I feel like they flesh out the reading and I like tying everything together for the message. But I've taken a couple of courses and I've read a couple of books, but then oh, so I used to like, so one of the courses that I took, you made like these kind of like not cue cards, but they were like cue words and stuff like that. For example, like the chariot, the word I use is drive, right? And it's like, and it's about like your human drive and your drive to succeed, but also like to actually go somewhere and travel. Like there's these things. So I have these keywords, and for the longest time, I would only do readings for my friends using my cheaters. I would only do it because I was so uncomfortable. And then in August, I had a significant spiritual experience. Okay. And I received a significant message of, you don't need those anymore. And I went, okay. And so I just dropped them. I know that it will evolve. It's a tarot, it evolves forever, right? Like you're
Yes,
always
it
learning
does.
something new. I only know how to do 3 spreads. I don't even know how to do a Celtic cross yet.
Celtic cross is big. Like, I'm
Yeah.
always amazed that that is one of the first.
Yeah.
When I was learning, every book had the Celtic cross in it,
Yeah.
probably because it's very Wiccan and that's what was hot when I was learning.
Yeah.
I'm always surprised because there's so much information in the Celtic cross.
Yeah.
What is it? It's like one, two, four, it's like 10 or 12 cards.
Yeah.
And that's so much information. I don't use it a lot.
Yeah.
I use a mini Celtic cross, so I don't do any of the ones down the side. I just do a
Oh, just
significator.
like that. Yeah.
I love a significator. I was taught to pick a card that represents your client, and even they can pick it.
Mm.
Sometimes what's fun if you have a lot of cards, like a lot of decks, is to have a person pick their significator out of one deck
Mm-hmm.
and then read them out of the other. That way it can show up again sometimes.
Yeah.
It's fun to do.
Yeah.
But the significator and then whatever's crossing them, and then just what's behind you, before you, above you, and below you.
Nice.
It's a
Cool.
really great
Yeah.
spread.
In my channel, I just do 3 card spreads because
Yeah.
I like right now I just want them to be about 10 minutes long. That's what I have the
Mhm.
space for. Now I'll do a variation of each of those. So like past, present, future, situation, obstacle, advice. Anyways, there's 5 different ones that I do.
A
And
three
those are in
card
the,
spread is super powerful.
it can be, right? And it gives me a lot of information,
Yeah.
especially about an issue. And then I like to do a year ahead spread. So like 1 card for every month with maybe
Yeah.
some clarifiers, and those make great birthday gifts.
Oh, that's a great spread. That is
Yeah.
a great spread. I've been ignoring my channel. I was doing a monthly spread,
Yeah.
full spread every month, which is a lot to
Yeah.
edit.
Yes. Yeah.
But I do a year ahead spread, and I
Yeah.
will be doing one this January.
Yeah.
And I do it for the collective. It's interesting because I find I can go back to it like in March
Yeah.
or whatever. It's interesting to watch that arc
Yeah.
happen.
And then the other one I do is like an open 7 card spread where the first card is the issue and the seventh card is the outcome, and everything else, it's not very structured. And so I get to use my intuition and spirit and then pull and see where things land. Those are typically like 20, 30 minutes. But again, later on, I think I've said in the channel that comes January, I'll start doing longer spreads and whatever. But for now, I mean, I do 6 readings every week.
It's a ton, girl.
But they're 10 to 12 minutes long each because I
Mhm.
do one for each human design type, and then I do one for the collective as well.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, like I said, Saturday mornings. This Saturday, I didn't do any this weekend because we spent Saturday driving to Seattle to get the dogs. So I was like, you know what? And then I was like, I could do them Sunday. I'm like, but it's okay. Like it's
It's
okay to
okay.
like just take a break. Like it's all right.
It's one of the beautiful things about being not the Joe Rogan podcast. Like, you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
actually just, you can be like, you know what? That one came out a little bit late, and that's okay.
that's okay.
And being an independent podcast and an independent channel, it's,
Yeah.
you really do have that.
Yeah. What made you decide to do like so? You have a YouTube channel and a podcast, correct?
I know, because I tend to do too much, right? So
Mm,
it probably would have been great to just focus on just one or the
mhm.
other.
Yeah.
But I was doing the podcast, and one of the things I knew I could have on the witching half hour or so was tarot episodes. I was
Mm,
talking about the art of the tarot and everything, and like breaking down the high arcana.
mm.
And I was like, well, how can I talk about something so visual in an audio format?
Yeah.
So then I was doing a YouTube kind of compendium for each one. And
Okay.
then I was like, well, I'm going to throw on some Tarot Tuesdays and monthly spreads and just really focus on just tarot. And it was weird because had had I known about efficiency and how much time everything takes, I would
Yeah.
have taken the video of the podcast
Yeah.
and
And then
made it into a
just,
YouTube, but they were two separate things. So I do a podcast and
okay.
then I, off the cuff, do the YouTube. And so I was doing double content on the same thing. And then once I figured out that's exhausting,
Yeah.
I'd already started this pattern. So I was like, whatever, I'm almost done the high arcana, so I'll just stick with it.
Just keep it going. And then it exists there forever, right? Like
It
it's not,
does,
you
right?
know, yeah, it's interesting because I'm focused on YouTube, but I have TikTok and but I haven't, like, it's like once you get done editing 6 videos and putting everything together and then putting them on YouTube, I'm like, okay. So I basically on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, although I'm most commonly on Facebook just because I'm so used to it, even though
Mhm.
it's like not like the future and whatever. But I only put the collective one on there.
I think I used to do a Tarot Tuesday every week for a long time.
Hmm. We did.
And I go back and forth with them. I
Yeah.
love that you're a tarot girl because so many people
Mm.
we know they're oracle girls through
Yeah.
through. And I'm so devoted to tarot. Like I
Yeah.
just it's my favorite divination tool.
Yeah.
And a lot of people they feel very intimidated by it.
Yes. Yeah. And I did before I got the message to go do it. And then
Yes.
it made it worth it. But again, I was an English teacher prior to becoming a counselor, but also like narrative therapy, which is a huge part of my practice. So I'm like, oh, these are archetypes. Oh, and then I'm learning to pull things. And then, like you said, I'll notice like little things in the cards. It's like, oh, there's a farmer's field behind here that I never noticed before. And like, what am I getting right now with that in relation to the other cards? And it's like, oh, the Knight of Pentacles, he needs to plant some seeds, like in that field or whatever. Like, there's so much, they're so rich. And I mostly use the Rider Smith Waite, right? I have a really lovely Modern Witch tarot. I don't know if you have that one, but it's great because it's
I
a
don't
feminist
I've
deck.
heard of it. I have a
Yeah.
list of ones I want, but I
Yeah.
have so many. And once
Yeah.
you are a tarot reader, people start
Yeah.
giving you tarot decks too,
Yeah.
which is my favorite gift to receive.
Nice. Noted.
Yeah.
But the modern witch one is great because the imagery is modern and it's all the characters are like female or non-binary. Okay, like my favorite one is like, so like the 10 of swords has this woman like lying on her side and with the imagery of it, being
Yeah.
stabbed and she's on her phone like this, like right? Like right? And it's like, yes, it's like,
I
and then
love
the quote
it.
is like, everything's fine. So it's very clever. And yeah, or like, even like, is it the Hierophant? I think it's the Hierophant. And she's got her like laptop open and she's closing it. Right? Like, it's like the motion is like, no, I know. Right? Like, yeah, it's a good one. Yeah.
Oh, that'll
So,
be a fun one.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
you
It's
said very
interesting
much.
the narrative of it. One of the
Mhm.
things I think is that people don't realize that most of the archetypes within the tarot, especially the high arcana, we're already familiar with them.
Mhm.
They're
Yeah.
they're woven through our culture, they're in our
Yes.
pop culture, they're in our stories. And so when I'm teaching it, it's it's interesting to see people make the connections. When you were talking about narrative, that's how I teach my kids
Mm.
because they've grown up around witchcraft. They've grown up around tarot cards. We always have decks lying all over the place. And there'll be moments where we pull them. And I remember one of my sons was asking me how I read, and we were pretend reading.
Yeah.
Right? And he was pulling cards. I'm like, tell me a story. I said, look at those, put the story together. What are those
Yeah.
cards saying?
Yeah.
And then he started putting the story together. And because I'm a witch, I can see who in our family he's tapping into.
That's
He's
amazing.
flowing. He was very on point with it. And it's about looking at the way the energy is flowing in that spread and putting
Mhm.
those characters together and figuring out the story and listening to your intuition about the story and listening to the messages from your guides about the narrative. It's
Yeah.
very narrational, I find.
So you can tell somebody the facts over and over and over again, but then you tell them a story that illustrates those facts and they'll remember it immediately. It's
It's in our
part of our
DNA.
human
It's
experience. Yeah. It's
yeah,
part of the
that's
human experience to be
oral
drawn to
tradition,
stories. Yeah.
story tradition
Yeah.
is how we taught each other for years. That's why we have all these beautiful fables and lore.
Yeah.
They're the story tradition.
Yeah.
So The YouTube channel.
Tarot in HD. That is like a double meaning, like high definition, but also human design. And like I said, I do readings almost every week for each one for each of the different types. And then, for example, if I'm doing a reading for a projector, okay, we haven't talked about projectors, but they're about 23% of 24% of the population, just depends where you get your information. And projectors have this incredible ability to like see everything from up high, right? Like they can have like a bird's eye view of everything that's going on, and they actually make great bosses, and they tend to be really good with like manage. Anyways, there's lots of things. So when I'm doing a reading for the projector, I speak to their strategy. I speak to their human design in the reading so that it's more meaningful, so that I can teach about human design while also doing the tarot and oracle card reading. Yeah.
Wow.
Uh,
So we're going to put a link in the show
yes.
notes
Sounds great.
to your YouTube channel. And
Perfect.
also, do you have a website, Kristy?
I do. And guess what? It's called tarotinhd.com.
Fantastic. So everyone will be able to find you. They
Yep.
can find out about human design. They
Yep.
can get in touch with you about your manifestation courses and
Yep.
classes. They can get in touch with you about all the things you do.
100%. Yes, it's exciting. It's all come together in divine timing. Isn't that just wonderful?
And I thank you so much
Oh,
for your
thank you.
time tonight and for being on the channel. I love that you talk as fast as me.
Yeah,
This
I
is
know.
going to be an episode that everyone is going to have to come back to and listen
Yeah.
again and again
Yeah. It
because,
was awesome. It just flowed really beautifully. And I'm so grateful. Thank you, Jody, again for having
oh my
me.
God, thank you for coming on. It was lovely to have you, my dear.
Yay. Okay. Well, till next time.